All right. Hello. Welcome to day 2 of our School Librarian Appreciation Group. Today, we are sharing a freebie for you from this group sponsor, which is us, Librarians Teach. It is the library curriculum company that myself and Colette founded. We're also going to share some practical ideas for how to use this freebie in your school library. Be sure to listen for the secret word at the end so you can get an extra entry in our prize giveaway.
Yes, that's right. So we are going to post the link to the freebie, which is a PDF download. You'll click the link. It will immediately ask you to save it. And so you can grab the link in the comments here. The freebie includes 10 questions that you can use with any read aloud, any book, any picture book, any nonfiction picture book. And also 10 activity ideas to also use with any picture book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction as well.
Exactly. And today we are going to model for you how to teach a library lesson with 2 of our favorite books, one fiction and one nonfiction, using this freebie.
So I'm actually going to start and I'll switch here for a second. Yep. All right. This is one of my favorite books for back to school, a library book for Bear. There are many books about libraries, of course. And actually that's one of those things that I really like, I like specialize in, is like keeping my eye out for books about libraries. I don't know about you, Carrie, but
Oh,
it kind
yeah.
of like every time you see one, you're like, ooh, this says the word library in the title. I wonder if it's any good.
But then you think
And
it must be good. It's about
yeah.
libraries.
And sometimes I do think publishers use that as a marketing thing to get libraries to buy it. Some are great and some are duds. This is one, though, that I think is one of the more excellent ones. And so I'll give you some reasons why that is. Mouse and Bear, if you don't know, is a series of books. So it's great because when I introduce this, I use this with first grade. Um, and it could probably go up to second grade, I would say too. But Mouse and Bear have many adventures together, and Mouse and Bear are the quintessential opposites best friends. Um, Bear is grumpy, a little bit crotchety. He's, not interested in trying new things a lot of times, not interested in branching out. And Mouse is very cheerful and happy and curious. And so it's just it like most books that have opposites attract and opposite characters, it's a lot of fun to read. I'm not going to read the whole story for copyright reasons and many others, but do go check it out from your library, especially if you're looking for a back to school lesson. So I'm also going to share quickly. There we go. This is a what the freebie looks like. Okay, so it has 10 activities at the top, and we'll be using some of these for each of the books and 10 questions. So during the read aloud, that's usually when I'm using the questions and I'm thinking of this. And for new librarians, if you are brand new to the profession, let me just assure you, it is very normal to have to practice this. You get better at it, right, Carrie? Like
Exactly.
as you do more read alouds, as you use more books for lessons, you'll just get more comfortable with it. And so um, Carrie mentioned to me, and I had forgotten that I do this, is when something is new, to me, I haven't read it much. I'll put like post it or little tabbies in. And sometimes I'll even leave entire post-it notes right here. So I just wrote these out quickly. If you use a book over and over again, you kind of remember it. Um, but so when I'm reading the first section, this is sort of the prologue. It talks about Bear. He doesn't want any more books because he has, 3 books about kings and queens, 3 about honeybees, and 1 about pickles, and that is more than enough. And so right away you get sort of the idea of his attitude. And so a great question to ask is, does anybody like pickles? Who here has tried a pickle? Um, or do you like books about kings and queens? Do you like honeybees? Or even do you like honey? You can start off with getting kids engaged. This I might, depending on how long my class period is, I was teaching on 40 minutes. So I usually, for this book, it's a little bit longer. I would usually skip a question in the prologue, and I would ask my questions later during the story. But if you have a longer library class, you can add more of these in. It's very flexible, so you can stretch a book like this as long or as short as you really want it to be. If you want it to be very short for like a 25-30 minute library class, you might just be reading the story and talking about it as a class afterwards. But I always like to stop a little bit. So I also like to add, these might be some different strategies you can use, especially if you might be new and maybe you've read to your children, but you've never read to a class before. Adding little things in like tapping. I might tap my finger or knock on a surface around me. So you like tap, tap, tapping. You're just adding to another sense to the read aloud. The great thing about Mouse and Bear books is not only is Mouse and Bear incredibly emotive, but there's also some really great vocabulary words like dreadful mistake, um, unnecessary. Let's see here. Some of my other ones. Oh, promise. This was one that I marked with my little sticky note here. Was that Bear doesn't want to go to the library. He's definitely thinks he has enough books. And Mouse says, "Oh, there are many delightful books in the library." Mouse assured him. "Humph," Bear goes, grumbled. But he had promised. And I like to stop there, especially at the beginning of the year, and talk with my first graders and say, well, if he promised, does he have to do it? And inevitably, there's several students that are like, yes, he said he would do it. Like, yes, he promised. So that can be a very quick moment, a little learning opportunity to say, yes, promise means that you said you would do it. So you have to do it, even if you don't want to right now. And then I move on. I don't make it a huge thing. Some of the other things I marked here with post-its is that when it talks about the wind rippling through their fur, I might take my fingers and go like rippling through their fur, like they can almost feel the wind rushing through them. And even the illustrations, you can sort of see the fur whooshing past them. But again, you're adding like another sense. You could even invite students to say like, take your fingers and like imagine the wind rippling through your hair. To just add something a little bit extra to your read aloud. Another great vocabulary word here, most excessive. um, and I love putting what I imagine Bear's voice to be into it and his attitude. Oh boy, does Bear have attitude. Um, and so I might highlight some other things in the book, like vocabulary words I've mentioned. And I definitely wanted to talk about the voices too, because Mouse and Bear are opposites. Bear is big, Mouse is small. I try to think ahead of time when I've read the book ahead of time to think about what kind of voice would that character have. Now, when characters are physically large, I think stereotypically I just tend to make my voice lower. And by the way, this is also a skill you get better at as you do more read alouds. And then Mouse's voice, because she's very small, I make her voice high and squeaky. And that can change with it's not consistent throughout the book. My voice can change certainly, and based on how tired my voice is. But it is a lot more fun. It's kids are. I don't think I know any child who doesn't enjoy when an adult does the voices, as my daughter likes to tell me. So I think, yeah, doing the voices if you're able to. However, pro tip here for many years, I had vocal problems where I could not do a lot of loud voices. I actually wore a microphone around my neck. And there are some personal voice amplifiers, which I highly recommend. If you're interested, you can DM us, or I can put a link in the comments. They really do save your voice a lot. But for this one, this page here, I mean, it's a fantastic page in the book. It's Bear shouting after several times of people telling him you need to use quiet voices in the library. He gets distracted by the story time and he Mouse is like, come on, let's go, it's time to go. And he turns around and shouts, quiet voices in the library. And if your voice is too tired to do that, or if your voice is like breaking or cracking, okay, invite the kids to help you. Say, they've already repeated that word, quiet voices in the library, several times. So I would hold the book up nice and big. It's in big text. And I would say to kids, okay, I need your help with this one. And it's okay to shout. It's okay to yell. And I go 1, 2, 3, and just like let it out. It will be unbelievably loud. Your ears might ring. But you're getting these children more engaged and more involved. And you're letting them know also learning is loud. My library was never going to be quiet, and I don't think they should be. How about yours, Carrie? Was yours ever a quiet library?
No, but I do need to warn librarians that that is when your principal will walk in, is when you're telling children to yell in the library. So
Absolutely. That's Murphy's Law of Education. Is your principal or God forbid the superintendent will walk in when you're like, everybody, let's shout together.
right.
Um, so yeah, so those are some strategies that I would use. Overall, I'll highlight some of the things from the freebie specifically. Always preview the book. Always read the book. Don't ever read a book cold. I've been surprised by some things that I'm like, oh, that's a problem. Also, it's okay to skip things. For instance, I read What Happened to Marion's Book every year in kindergarten, but some of that gets pretty wordy for kindergarten. So there, I will skip whole paragraphs, or I'll change the word media center to the word library. And I think as educators and as librarians, if you need to know, it's okay to do that. Like, it's okay to change a word here or there. It's okay to you know, omit something as long as it's not like central to the story. Of course, it should still make sense. We're not talking about censorship here. We're talking about changing a word to a different word to make it more age appropriate, or to make it more understandable for students. So I never saw a single problem doing that at all. Think of the character's personality and voices. What are some things you can bring to that read aloud experience that will make it more than just listening to a book? Like, this is different than playing a YouTube video of a book being read aloud. It's different than listening to an audiobook even. You are in many ways performing it, and you'll get more comfortable doing that the more you do it. So using some of the strategies, whoops, sorry, there we go, from here. What for this book specifically, I would use looking up other books or ebooks by the same author. That could be as simple as having a bin out on a table that says, these are other books about Mouse and Bear's adventures, if you'd like to get one. You could show them how to find them on your catalog. You can definitely write a letter to the author or illustrator as a follow-up activity. And any of these would totally work. Draw the setting of the book, and draw Mouse and Bear in our library, visiting our school. Making a bookmark, always going to be popular. My students will never not love bookmarks. But the questioning, this is where I think I always felt most comfortable when I was doing a read aloud, is incorporating some of these questions to really deepen the learning experience, and deepen the educational connections. So the main one here, especially for Mouse and Bear, what was the lesson that the character, in this case it would be Bear, I think, learned from this book? So, spoiler alert, by the end of the book, Bear has checked out several new books in addition to the 7 that he has at home, and he's very happy with those books. They're about different topics. They're about wooden canoes and rocket ships, and he gets the story that the librarian was reading aloud to the storytime group that he interrupted. And so there's there's lots of answers to this. It's not one lesson that he learned. A child might say, well, he learned he needs to use quiet voices in the library, or he learned to get new books, or he learned about the very brave bear and the treasure of Pickle Island. There's lots of different lessons that a student could take from that. So it's not really about a right or wrong answer here. It's more about engaging the students into think back to the story they just heard, and to draw some conclusions from it. And so the other one I would say is, well, who's your favorite character and why? I mean, that's always an easy one to do a quick poll. Hey friends, who likes Bear best? Hands up. Who likes mouse best? Hands up. If you really want to be very brave, you could say who liked the librarian best from the book. And I did mention that I would say what I liked best about this book for teaching about libraries, and it's that the librarian is not the one that goes shh. It's actually a parent that's at story time that goes shh and tells Bear to shush. The librarian is smiling and kind. She doesn't tell him to be quiet. She invites him to story time even after he shouts. And I think that's such a great non-stereotypical portrayal of modern librarians. We're not there to keep it quiet, even if our patrons want us to. We're there to invite people in to use the library, into a story, and to just enjoy what we have to offer. So I think that I just love that. And I always look for that in books about libraries. So those are the questions that I would think lend themselves most to a book like this. But certainly the great thing about whether you have a longer class period, like 45 minutes or 55 minutes, then you can use more of those strategies and more of these questions to like stop and pause, or when you're finished with the book, like go back and ask a question for responses. So that's how I would use it. Some of these questions and activities for a fiction book. I'm going to turn it over to Carrie here, and she's going to talk about using some of these with a nonfiction book.
All right. Thanks, Colette. I am sharing today this book, and we'll get it
There we go.
switched around. There we go. It is called Happy Sloth Day by April Pulley Sayre. And I don't know about you, but she is one of my very favorite nonfiction authors. And I like to browse through my San Antonio Public Library. I walk through the children's section and just see what books are new. This one was published in 2022, so it's a very new book. I love that I really would use it with K through 5 because it's got the short phrases that I could read aloud to the younger students, like pause, time for claws, elbow up, back scratch. But then it also has more detail over here that the older students would have the stamina to sit still and listen to. So, of course, like all of April Pulley Sayre's books, it has great photographs of all kinds of animals living in the canopy and very poetic language that accurately describes those animals. So, some questions I would ask after reading this book would be, what's one interesting thing you learned today? The book is full of facts about these animals. So what's one interesting thing? Because different students will focus in on different parts. What's a question you still have about sloths? We really want to develop students' questioning skills that we're going to use on research projects for inquiry. So what's a question you still have, and how could you find the answer to that question? Then another one, number 6, what if the story happened at our school? Even though it's not a story, they could predict what would happen if a sloth came to our school. What if a sloth came into the library? What do you think would happen? Where would it go? What would it do? Then there are plenty of great activities you can do after reading the book. And you might have students doing some of these with you, or some of them they could do independently while others are checking out books. You could show other books, because I hope we all have other books in our library by April Pulley Sayre. Show the students other books by the same author. You could. We love Art for Kids Hub, and our students are always excited when they see this coming because they love drawing. And at our school, actually pretty much in our district. We don't have art teachers in elementary school. So especially the students that love drawing are excited when we get to do that. So your students could draw along with Art for Kids Hub. You also could check out National Geographic Kids. For any animal nonfiction book you read, you can probably find an interesting article on National Geographic Kids and talk about that. Is this also nonfiction like our book? Yes, there is nonfiction here as well. What else? You might also want to tie this in. I can't remember if we listed this, but tie this into your research databases like PebbleGo, your online encyclopedias. They're going to have sloth articles as well. So what I would probably do is have draw along together. And then while maybe one table at a time is getting up to check out books, have the other students be finishing their drawing and maybe finishing the scenery around the sloth and then writing a fact that they learned about the sloths. And then they could take that home to their parents and talk about what I learned in the library today. So you're building those bridges to the home as well. So just to kind of reiterate, you could take, for this one, you could take this Happy Sloth Day and you've got your library lessons for K through 5 for your week. You've got plenty of learning, you've got plenty of activities, you've got engaging activities that your students are going to want to do. So they're not going to be trying to race each other or hit each other with shelf markers or other things.
Our students would never do that.
No. So that's something that we're sharing with you because this is a way that real librarians plan lessons. You choose great books, and then there's some activities that you plan to go along with them, and your students are just falling more and more in love with reading, and that's our job.
Yeah, I think that's something that perhaps new librarians might not know is that a read aloud is enough. Kind of like the word no is a complete sentence with a period at the end. Like a read aloud is your lesson, period.
Right.
That is all you have to be doing. There's no rules that say, well, I have to have this very complex lesson with multi-step things, 12 steps to my lesson, and you might have to turn in something like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm well aware there are some pretty rigorous requirements for lesson planning, but as far as doing the lesson, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like a read aloud is good enough. That is your lesson. And you sharing a story or a nonfiction picture book is equally as important as doing a very intense research project in collaboration with your teachers or doing a book talk on something that connects with the wider curriculum. They don't have to be connected to the wider curriculum. They can be. But I think that's something that if you need someone to tell you it's okay, it is okay.
And I think we also, I mean, this is not necessarily our job, but we also teach a lot of social emotional skills too. I mean, how do you have a conversation? How do you have a polite and respectful conversation? When I go by classrooms, a lot of times I see students sitting in absolute silence doing pencil paperwork. And that doesn't help you learn how to speak and have conversations. And that's something I feel like we're trying to catch up on after all of the COVID isolation. So it does take a little bit of patience to teach about, not interrupting and speaking kindly, but that's an important goal for us too.
I think that's a really good point too. I never saw it as explicitly teaching social emotional skills and social emotional learning, but there was so much embedded already in just a regular read aloud lesson, whether it was saying, oh, does anybody disagree with that? Like inviting students to non-verbally raise their hand if they disagreed. Oh, can you tell me why? And letting that one of the students explain their thinking and say,
Mhm.
oh, you both could be right. That's a
Mhm.
really interesting question. And sometimes it would give me an opportunity to say, let me pull up Pebble Go here and let's find the answer.
Right.
Especially if it got way off track or like, wait a minute, nope, nope, that is not factually true at all. Let's find out for sure. um, and also letting them know in a gentle way, not a judgmental or like you were wrong, that's a failure kind of way.
Right.
Um, but also saying like, we could sometimes we pulled it up and sometimes we said, I wonder what a great question that is. If you would like to find out about that, see me when you're looking at for books and I'll show you the shelf of books to look for to find out more about that animal, to find the answer to that question, to find out more about whatever topic it was. And I think that kind of personal invitation to learning,
Mhm.
invitation to personalized learning, that where a student can find something that they are interested in. That's still kind of a lost art in public education, I think, where we're one of the last places where that can happen.
Yes, exactly. And we wanna build that community of learners, community of readers. We're all learning here together. And I don't know the answer, but we're gonna look it up.
Yes. I think that's also I know as teachers that's hard for us to admit,
Right.
especially as a librarian. It's hard for me to admit when I didn't know. But as I got more comfortable saying the words, I'm not sure. Let's go find out.
Mhm.
um, that made for so much more interesting conversations and actually I would say better classroom management even because they could
Yes.
see that I wasn't the person in power all the time. I was like, let's find out together. Or I'd say, I learned something new today too. How cool is
Right.
that? And I think that just helps build your library classroom culture as well.
I agree. I completely agree.
And so, all right. Well, I don't see any comments, and in fact, I apologize. We probably, I should have mentioned at the beginning to invite you to comment. Um, I know we had asked in the beginning to share how long your classes were. That kind of helped us to know what to talk about for this. But if you have any questions or comments or thoughts or things you'd like to share, you can comment even if you're watching this in the replay, and we'll be checking on those. So yeah, Carrie, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
No, I can't think of any, but yes, we
Okay.
definitely I wanna repeat, this is our group, and we're in the group, and we're happy to answer questions. If you wanna comment below this video, we're here for you.
All right. Well, it is definitely time for the secret code word. Um, and so, using the same theme as we used yesterday with Dave from Beanstack, the secret code word is my pet's name. Her name is Beyonce. She's our new kitten that, in fact, you may have heard her in the background here. She was getting up to no good while we were chatting. Um, so when you enter the giveaway in Rafflecopter, entering the code word will get you an extra entry in our prize drawing. And today's prize we'll have two of them. It's to win one of two $25 gift cards to the Librarians Teach Curriculum Marketplace, which if you'd like to find out any more about that, you can go to librariansteach.com and check it out yourself.
So we will post that Rafflecopter link in the group after we finish this video, and you can enter to win one of the two $25 gift cards to the Librarians Teach Marketplace. We'll be doing that by random drawing. And thanks so much for joining us today, librarian friends. We're glad you could be here.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.